Picture this. I'm sitting in the boardroom on the 37th floor of a building in downtown Toronto. I'm looking out at this beautiful cityscape. The lake is in front of me, and I'm looking around at the faces of the people at the table, and I'm half listening to the meeting, and I'm thinking to myself, is this it? It's like, is this all there is? Is this really what I wanted for my life? And this little niggling voice, I've heard it before, it's quite familiar. It keeps chirping at me. It's chirping at me. Is this it? Is this it? What else is there? There has to be something more. But every time this voice comes up, I tell it to shut up and sit down, because I don't know what to do about it. Like, I've worked really hard to get here. Like, if it's not this, what is it? What is it that I'm supposed to be doing? And I'm a wife, I'm married to my high school sweetheart, I have a beautiful daughter, we live in the suburbs, in the perfect suburban home. I'm big time into fitness. I'm the person who's in the gym at 5:30 a.m. before I go to the office. And, I'm an executive at a global Fortune 500 company. I'm well paid, I have great perks, I travel the world. By all accounts, I have a very successful life. And I pride myself on this very successful life. And I'm not about to blow it up over this little voice in the back of my head. So I just keep telling it to shut up and sit down, and it keeps coming back. And then in the year leading up to my 50th birthday, my perfectly curated, very successful life begins to unravel. And it starts with my daughter moving 3 hours away to go to school, so it's just like me and my husband left in this big house. And a few months later, my husband surprised me by asking me for a divorce that I didn't see coming. I was blindsided by it, and I was crushed. I mean, we'd been married for 20 years. We'd been high school sweethearts. We'd known each other since we were 17. I was crushed. And I decide I'm not going to tell a single solitary soul, except for a few very close friends who would obviously know. But at work, I'm not telling a soul, because I don't want anybody to see any cracks in my very successful, perfectly curated life. So I just suck it up, and I shoulder on, and every once in a while, I'd have to close my office door, cry, then I'd put my game face back on and go. So this goes on for a few months. And then my body starts to betray me. I stop sleeping. Like, for months and months and months on end, I'm sleeping for 2 hours a night. And I keep thinking to myself, I should be really tired, like I should be exhausted. But it's the opposite. I'm so wired, I have so much energy, but I'm also having heart palpitations, right? I'm overly emotional, like I'm crying at the drop of the hat over the stupidest things. I can't make decisions. And I start to think to myself, this isn't good. Like, there's a part of me, that's like, okay, well, just keep it going, keep it all together. But there's a part of me in my brain that's going, this isn't good. Like, this is not going to end well. Like, you got to figure this out. You got to do something about this. So I'm pondering my options, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? And then I think, okay, well, really, I need to just start sleeping. So I'm going to take a leave of absence from work, just focus on sleeping and get back to it. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, taking a leave of absence is probably going to be career suicide. Like, I'm probably doing the worst thing. But I psych myself up because I'm like, this is really important, I have to do it. So I make the decision, and I go into my boss's office, and I tell him what's going on, and he's so supportive. He's like, I totally understand. Do whatever you need to do for you. The company will support you. And I'm feeling really relieved, because I had been dreading this conversation for weeks. And like, even sitting in the office, like, I was like, I'm going to throw up. Like, this is the end of my career. And I'm feeling this like wave of relief. And I'm like, wow, this went way better than I thought it was going to go. And as I turn to leave his office and I put my hand on the door to open it, he says to me, just be 100% sure that this is what you want to do. And he confirms to me my worst fear, that I am just basically killing my career. So I leave, like, I've committed to this. I take a leave of absence, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, let's just find the fastest path to get back here so I can minimize the damage and kind of get back to some semblance of normal life. So I go to doctors and chiropractors and naturopaths and all of these things, and I'm trying a million different things. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, let's just let's just get this done, like, so I can go back, so I can minimize the damage, pick up what's left of my career. And, I end up going back to work quite a few weeks earlier than I probably should have, and I'm kind of feeling okay, I've got a little bit more sleep. And I go back to work and I just kind of pick up where I left off, and I'm traveling, and I'm thinking, okay, all right, this is good. No harm, no foul. I think it's all good. Crisis averted. I'm on a business trip, and this little voice chirps up again. And it says, it's compelling me to go to a meditation class at my local yoga studio that I had seen. And I'm saying to the voice, we've been down this road. We don't meditate. Like, we're not built that way. I had tried it so many times and thought it's just an abject failure. It's just not who I am. But I'm so compelled that I end up taking a standby flight home so I can make it to this meditation class. So I go, and I'm thinking to myself as I'm walking into the class, I'm like, I don't really know why I'm here. Like, this is just a waste of time, but whatever, we'll go with it. It's a dark room. There's like 5 of us, all sitting on yoga mats, and it's all nice and calm, Zen music. And the instructor begins the meditation. And as she starts talking, I start to feel this well of emotion coming up. And I'm thinking to myself, what's happening? What's going on? Like, I have no idea what this is. And I'm like, Jen, get it together, get it together. And this well of emotion bubbles up, and I start crying. And I'm not talking like tear rolling down the cheek. I'm talking like I am crying. It's leading to like sobs, and the instructor puts a box of Kleenex on my mat, and she just smiles and nods at me, and I'm trying to keep it together so that I'm not disturbing everybody else in this class. And I'm blowing my nose quietly, and this happens for the whole entire hour of this meditation class. And I'm thinking at this point, like, I have lost my mind. I have lost control here. Like, I don't know what's happening. And when I leave the class, I'm walking out. I've got 2 mittfuls of snotty Kleenex. I've got mascara streaming down my face. And this teacher doesn't say anything to me again. She just smiles and nods. And as I'm leaving, she says, oh, I have a 4-week class coming up if you'd like to join. And before I even know what was happening, I joined this 4 weeks of meditation. And again, I'm driving home, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? Like, we don't meditate. So this goes on for 4 weeks. Every week, I go to this class, I sit there, I cry. And at some point, I decide, okay, well, I don't know what's happening, but whatever it is wants to get out, so we're just gonna go with it. And after the 4 weeks, I start to feel like a lot better. I'm like, I feel lighter somehow. My sleep is getting a little bit better. I'm just like breathing deeper. A few weeks later, I'm back in that same boardroom, overlooking the beautiful scenic cityscape with the lake in the background. And this time it's performance review time. I'm with my boss. And he tells me that I have the lowest performance rating I've ever had in my 12 years at that company. And when I start to probe him, like, I'm shocked. And when I probe him about why, he says, well, your employee satisfaction scores were really, really low. And your employees said that you were not a good manager. This didn't sit well with me, because had he told me that my expense reports were late or that administratively I wasn't strong, I'd be like, okay, we got some wiggle room here, right? But that was the one thing I knew that I prided myself on, was the relationship I had with my employees. So, I asked a lot of questions, and I was like, show me the data, because if there's something that I need to see, there's something that I need to know, I want it. So I asked, and nobody would be able to show me the data. And eventually I thought, okay, I'm just gonna go right to the horse's mouth. And I went to my staff and I was like, tell me, like, what's happening? Like, and they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? So I go back to my boss and I say to him, it's not adding up, what's going on? And the other part of this is, like, my rating was so low, they want to put me on a performance improvement plan, which for any of you who are not familiar with that is the last step before they fire you, right? And I've just come back off this leave. So after I question my boss and I push about, what's happening here, he finally admits to me that they're making some changes and they want basically to be able to move me out of my job. Well, if there's one thing that I cannot tolerate, it is injustice. And I am fired up now. Like, I've been fighting for this job, like, all along. I've been ignoring that little voice all along. So I hire myself a high-priced employment lawyer, and I say, I'm fighting this. A few weeks into fighting it, we're building a case. It looks really good. My lawyer is like, this is really positive. We can win here. One morning I wake up and I hear this voice say, what are you fighting for? And I look around the room because it was so clear that I'm like, somebody said it, but there's nobody there. It's this little voice. And I'm like, I'm fighting for my job. I'm fighting for my career. I'm fighting for my life. That's what I'm fighting for. But it just keeps chirping at me. And eventually I think, really, what am I fighting for? So I let go and I tell my lawyer to negotiate me a really sweet exit package, which she did. So there I am. I'm a 50-year-old woman who's divorced, unemployed, an empty nester, and whose body is completely betraying her, right? Like I have all of these injuries. Like one day I'm walking down the street, I sneeze, I throw my back out so badly I can't get off the couch for 5 days. Like it's just, I'm a mess. Like I'm a hot mess. I'm falling apart. And I'm thinking, like, where do I go from here? Like, what do I do? Like, I've done everything right. I've checked all of the boxes, go to school, get a good job, work your way up the corporate ladder, have a kid in there, live in a nice, I've done it all. Like, where did I go wrong? How did I end up here? And I can't answer that question. So, I start thinking about, okay, well, what's next? Where do I go from here? And I start looking around me, and what the world tells me is that for a 50-year-old woman, your future is rocking chairs, retirement plans, and bladder leakage protection. And I'm like, not my reality, but okay. So, I throw myself a big old pity party, and I'm like thinking, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I keep it together? Everybody else's life seems to be going along just great. Like, what's wrong with me, right? And I throw myself a big old pity party for a lot longer than I would like to admit, before one day I wake up and I think, I'm 50, I have maybe 30 or 40 years ahead of me. Like, am I really just gonna lie around, feeling sorry for myself for like 30 years? And then the little voice comes back and it says to me, you should write about it. And I resisted hard because I'm like, I'm not a writer, I'm a strategy person, I'm not a writer. But eventually I give in and I start writing about my experience and everything that I'm feeling and the big questions that I'm asking. And then the little voice says, you should publish it. And again, I'm like, hell no, I am not putting my business out for the world to see. Like, what will people think? But eventually I start a blog and I start this random blog page and I start sharing all of this thing. And what happened next really surprised me. Because what I thought was just a me problem, I began to realize was a we problem. And there were all of these women out there who were having the same experience, different circumstances, but the questions were the same, like different experiences, like where do I go from here? There's got to be more than this. This shouldn't be it. And they started sharing their experiences with me. And then I said, okay, like, where are all of these like women in their 50s and 60s and 70s who are like reinventing their lives and like, creating their kick-ass next chapter? Like, where are these women? And I searched long and hard to find, but I had to dig deep because, again, what you see in the media is not exactly the most inspiring next chapter. So I start having these conversations with women who are just, reinventing themselves, and I'm so inspired by it. Right? And I'm thinking to myself that, this kind of inspiration, like I know I need it, so there are other people out there who need it too. And so the blog starts taking off and women are telling me their stories, and then I think I should just start a podcast. So I start a podcast. And I'm sharing these stories of women, and again, women are just like it's growing. It's mushrooming, like so many stories coming at me, so many women with the same little niggling voice. Right? And then I start to realize that this little voice is actually like, we start to become friends, right? And I start realizing that I'm like, she's been like on my side this whole time, but I was so focused. So I start, like I said, sharing these stories, starting the podcast, and then it just starts blowing up. So it goes from the blog to the podcast. It becomes events, a mastermind group, a coaching group. And the whole time, every step of this journey was guided by that little inner voice that I spent years trying to ignore. Like years trying to ignore. And I started to realize that I'm like, what the world tells us is, 50 is the beginning of the downhill slope to old age oblivion. It's not. There's so much more to our lives than we can actually see. There are so many more dimensions of who we are yet to explore. And if we just tune inwards and listen to that little voice that we all have, right, we will be led places that we can't possibly imagine. So thank you.